Well, it's that time of year again. The year is ending. I don't know how that keeps happening. It's like it happens every year, but it did. And that means that it's time to make a video about the favorite games that I've played throughout the year. And this year I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently. I'm not going to make some arbitrary numbering of them or say which one is the absolute best, because it's like, how do you say this action game is better than this puzzle game? You don't. So I'm not going to. We're also just going to be talking about the games that I've played, obviously, because there's still some that I have not, so those will not be on the list. But whatever. My personal subjective list commences. Elite Dangerous. Talk about a mind-boggling game. Explore a one-to-one representation of the Milky Way galaxy and do just about anything your space adventuring heart desires. Relying on the same basic premise of the classic Elite games, you basically start off with a simple ship and few resources and make your way in the galaxy by way of legal and not-so-legal trading, bounty hunting, and discovery. It also makes fantastic use of VR, and I about wore out my Oculus Rift with it when I first got it. Wolfenstein: The New Order. This was developed by Machine Games, who are largely composed of people that worked at Starbreeze on games like The Darkness and Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay, and man, you can tell. This is pure action game perfection, taking the familiar Wolfenstein characters and setting and tossing them into an alternate history Cold War filled with some of the most satisfying sci-fi weaponry ever. BJ Blazkowicz doing his best Rorschach impression gets a little stale, but man, the rest is, stealth, shooting, exploration, it's all here and it's all top-notch. I loved this game, and it's quite possibly my favorite of the year. Watch_Dogs. I must admit my biggest reason for enjoying this game was being able to explore a virtual Chicago. It's always been my favorite city, and while the game takes some bizarre creative liberties with its depiction, it's so dead on other times that I just walk around for hours doing nothing of value. Sadly, most of the gameplay and the main character himself can be described in much the same way, nothing of value. Although I did get a kick out of some of the hacking minigames, and I think the series has potential, I just hope Ubisoft doesn't milk it to death. Shovel Knight. I would describe this as 8-bit influenced platforming art. Take equal parts Mega Man and DuckTales and throw in a dash of Zelda 2. That's Shovel Knight in a nutshell, and holy crap, is it every bit as good as it sounds. And looks, I really dig the art style here. It sticks to the original color palette of the NES and mixes in the parallax scrolling and level of detail from the SNES. For me, this is quite simply the most enjoyable old-school style platformer of the year, so if you like those classic titles but want something totally new to sink your teeth into, look no further. Divinity: Original Sin. Now this is a role-playing adventure that you really shouldn't miss. If you like that kind of stuff, it takes classic computer role-playing and adventure game stories and puzzle solving, complete with loads of complicated dialogue and inventory puzzles, and mixes it with tactical turn-based combat and superb co-op. I love how the lead characters are often at odds with one another, and you're constantly having to resolve conflicts of interest and morality. I did find the combat segments to be a bit too punishing and long-winded at times, but overall I find that the biggest sin would be not playing Original Sin. Murdered: Sole Suspect. Here's a game I have mixed feelings on. On the one hand, I love the premise of playing a detective who has to solve his own murder before he can move on to the afterlife. I enjoyed the twist on the Salem witch trial tales and the fact that you can solve murder mysteries as a cat if you're so inclined. I mean, that's just great. But I freaking hated the clunky, infuriating stealth sections, and there are simply far too many of them. If you can get past those, this is quite the fun little paranormal murder mystery adventure game. Octodad: Dadliest Catch. Weird how this game ended up as one of my favorites from the year, since I'm normally not enough of a fan of these derpy movement games to want to play it to completion, but Octodad won me over in its bizarre tales of paternal struggle. I mean, the dude just really loves his kids and his family, even though he's an octopus and is constantly being hunted by an evil chef. The story is what makes Octodad to me, though I must admit that I was also highly amused by taking something as simple as buying groceries and turning it into this huge ordeal. The Sims 4. Yep, this game was a disappointment to many, myself included, but yep, I still had a ton of fun with it anyway, and I look forward to seeing what kind of expansion shenanigans they come up with, overpriced or not. I still think that Maxis should have delayed the game for another 6 months or so, because the things they've added as free updates since launch have been great, and I think the potential for this entry in the series is huge. Most of the engine improvements are awesome, The Sims feel more alive than ever, and I quite like the aesthetic. I just wish it had deeper customization, a true open world, and more options for ruining my Sims' lives. Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil Edition. Yeah, Diablo 3. It came out 2 years ago and it sucked on launch, as I said in my video on it, but holy crap! Blizzard delivered with this re-release, and I actually find that I prefer it on consoles as opposed to the PC in this case. They've fixed every one of the complaints I had on launch, retooled the controls to work perfectly with a gamepad, and the couch co-op is phenomenal. Haven't had this much fun with a console hack and slash since Dark Alliance on the PS2, so this was entirely welcome in my book. Wasteland 2. I was a day one backer for the Kickstarter and adore the original game, so yeah, I'm straight up biased in saying it's one of the best of the year, but dude, it is, I swear. If you like old school CRPGs, turn-based tactical combat a la Fallout 1 and 2, and ridiculously involved character specialization, then this is your game. It falls into sort of a weird territory though, as far as looking like a game from the early 2000s, having gameplay that kind of feels even older, yet came out in 2014. But if you just imagine this as the Wasteland sequel that was made back then but was never released, your mind will explode like a blood sausage at the sheer awesomeness contained within. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Developed by a group of ex-People Can Fly developers going by the name The Astronauts, Ethan Carter is not the brother of Aaron, and is actually a mysterious, gorgeous, relatively short, exploration-focused adventure. It's quite linear, and the puzzles never really reached the levels of complexity I was expecting, but it didn't matter because the world and the narrative just drew me in and held my attention throughout. Forza Horizon 2. I love this game so much. This is one of the single best racing games I have ever had the pleasure of experiencing. It picks up the torch once carried by games like Test Drive Unlimited and runs with it, making for a better game in almost every way. Expanding on the original Horizon, this time you get a true open world. Day, night, and weather cycles, one of the more eclectic selection of cars I've seen, and excellent online gameplay should you so desire, and having a constant drip feed of cash, prizes, and upgrades that actually make a difference to the gameplay makes it one of the most compelling racers I've played. If you actually have an Xbox One and enjoy cars to any degree, get this. Alien Isolation. I was prepared for this game to suck. After the debacle that was Aliens Colonial Marines, and this being developed by the people behind the Total War series, how could this be any good? Well, I'm happy to say that my fears were completely unfounded, and instead, my fears were redirected towards one of the most insidious, evil creatures ever brought into a game. Granted, the whole thing kind of turns into a limp noodle towards the end, but altogether this is still one of the games I had the most fun with this year. It may be stressful, maddening, and chilling fun, but lots of fun nonetheless. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. This is another contender for my absolute favorite of the year, and it came out of freaking nowhere. But I sat down and played through the 30-hour campaign in practically one sitting. It was not healthy. It may look like a mindless action game or yet another cheap Lord of the Rings licensed disappointment, but you're in for a real treat if you just get past the first few hours. The Nemesis system is one of the most amazing things I've seen in games in years, and combined with the grotesquely satisfying combat, it made for some of the most enjoyable gaming I've had in a long time. Monument Valley. Wow, this is absolutely captivating. MC Escher-inspired artwork, gameplay elements similar to Echochrome and Fez, and an ambient soundtrack that is nothing short of inspiring to me. I don't even bother with mobile games typically, but this is one that I had to make an exception for as soon as I saw it, and man, I'm glad I did. If you've got an hour to kill and want to tease your brain a bit, just install this, plug in some headphones, and go play this under the stars one night. I did, and I found it to be refreshing, relaxing, and ridiculously awesome. And lastly, Goat Simulator, the best game of the year. Okay, no, it's really not. I felt it weird to talk about 2014 and not even mention Goat Simulator, because, I mean, between this and Flappy Bird, it's hard to think of two games that just were absurd and somehow caught on in the public eye. And that is all for my personal best of 2014. Like I said earlier, there's a bunch of games that I just haven't even gotten around to playing yet, so I'm sure that my list would change in a couple weeks if I play some more stuff, so whatever. Leave your favorites in the comments below, and if there's some stuff that I haven't seen or something and you think that I would really enjoy, according to these other things that are on my list, then let me know. I'm always looking for more stuff to play that I might not have yet. And if you enjoyed this video, then I've done a bunch of other lists and a bunch of reviews and other things here on this channel, so if you care for more of my voice in your ears, then you're in the right place. Go check them out or subscribe to be notified whenever more of them arrive. They do so every Monday and Friday. You can also interact with and follow me on Twitter and Facebook, as well as support the show on Patreon if you've got money that you want to spend. It also gets you some cool perks and helps the show continue and all that good stuff that Patreon allows for. It's freaking awesome. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in 2015.